I was halfway through answering a client email when my phone lit up. Mom flashed across the screen. I let it ring twice before I picked up. Hi, Rowena. Her voice sounded bright and celebratory, like she'd already opened a bottle of champagne. I straightened. Hey, I said. Just wanted you to know Jasper and I are flying to Europe tomorrow. Isn't that fun? I blinked. What? Oh, and I almost forgot, she said, though she hadn't. We sold the beach house and your car. We needed the money quickly, and you weren't using either one. It's all done. Money's wired. We're off tomorrow afternoon. Love you, sweetie. We'll send photos. Click. I stared at my reflection in the dark laptop screen. Behind me, a barista called a name and filled a cup. Outside, traffic kept flowing like nothing big had happened. But something had. She said we. She meant her and Jasper, not me. The beach house had been ours since I was a kid. My dad built the dock by hand. The car, an old Saab we rebuilt together, wasn't fancy, but it was mine. And now she had sold both as if they were clutter. I closed my laptop slowly. No panic, no rush. I'd known a day like this might come. I had a plan I hoped I'd never need. I took a last swallow of warm coffee, reached into my bag, and pulled out my second phone, the one with only one contact. I dialed. One ring. Milo, came the calm, clipped voice, familiar. She did it, I said. She sold the house and the car. A beat. Understood, he said. Do we proceed? I let air leave my nose. Yes, quietly. We'll start with the deed records, he said. I'll call you in an hour. I ended the call, slid the phone away, and looked around the cafe. No one noticed that someone had tried to wipe me off the map. But she forgot what my father taught me, how to prepare in silence, how to wait without warning, and how to guard what was mine long before she knew its value. The envelope had sat in the back of my dresser for 15 months. I moved it twice. Once when I relocated to Asheville, once after the holidays when I cleaned out everything. But I never opened it. I wasn't even tempted. His handwriting on the front was steady. Rowena, when you're ready. The morning. He gave it to me. We were on the beach house porch. I had driven up from Chapel Hill for a weekend. He poured coffee and set the envelope between us like it was a grocery receipt. Don't open it unless something happens, he said. Only when you know it's time. I assumed something meant something dramatic, an arrest, a diagnosis. He didn't mention a heart attack. He didn't mention dying on a Tuesday morning while changing my brake pads. After that, the envelope felt like a ghost. I paid the house taxes to honor him. I let my mother use the car because it felt decent. Now she had sold both, like a yard sale with better lighting. I set the envelope on my table. My hands were steady. My chest pulsed with a feeling I didn't yet name. I slid my thumb under the seal. Inside were 5 documents. No note, no extra. Words. The first, a notarized deed transfer, putting the beach house into an LLC 2 years before he died. The second, the same for the car. The next 2, deeds for 2 Chapel Hill duplexes I didn't know he owned. The last, a signed certificate for Vale Holdings LLC, my name, my address, his signature, and his accountant's details, all clean, all legal, all airtight. I leaned back and stared at the stack that told me what he had seen coming. He hadn't trusted her. Quietly, he had protected me. I slid everything into a manila folder and called Milo again. He picked up before the first ring finished. She never had the right to sell any of it, I said. Which means, he answered, we're not just defending, you're in control. Milo met me early the next morning. His office was a converted mill. Red brick, steel beams, matte gray paint. Simple sign. He buzzed me in himself. Coffee? He asked. No time, I said, handing him the folder. Start with the buyer. He pulled out the papers and scanned. Cass Vale, he said. Interesting coincidence. I let a small smile show. Not a coincidence. He looked up. Contingency? I nodded. I spoke to Cass right after the funeral. We were freshman roommates. She's in real estate now. I didn't tell her everything. I wanted to keep control and avoid manipulation. If my mother ever tried to sell anything without authority, Cass agreed to buy, quietly. She'd hold it until we fixed it. Milo sat back, impressed. So your mother tried to sell property she didn't own, and your recorded buyer is someone you empowered in advance. That gives us grounds to reverse the sale, and sue if we choose. He paused. You already knew that. I nodded. I don't want court. His brow lifted. I don't want to humiliate her, I said. I want her to understand, not punishment, consequence. Lawsuits teach people like her nothing. They just create new stories to blame. He studied me, then set the papers down. So what's the plan? Freeze everything. Quietly undo the transfer. Move assets back under my name. Lock the LLC. Notify the county. When she comes back from Europe, I let the silence do the talking. She returns to a life where her old tricks don't work. He nodded slowly. And Cass? She holds the deed a bit longer. When Alora tries to step into the house, Cass is the one to say no. I don't want my name on that paper. Not yet. He tapped his pen. You've thought this through. 2 years give you time to think, I said. He pushed the folder back. Then let's make it real. By noon, the reversal was moving. By nightfall, every Vale Holdings property was back in restricted status. It was time to let her craft her own fall. They posted airport photos. Alora, in big sunglasses. Jasper holding a passport like he had won the lottery. Time for our next chapter. Europe, here we come, the caption read. I didn't comment. She preferred the story where I was stuck in Asheville, sad and stranded. I let her sleep under that story. While they sipped champagne over the Atlantic, we worked fast. Milo filed the reversal with the county. Cass returned the deed in a sealed packet. I logged into the LLC dashboard and cut off access to every asset tied to my name: properties, vehicle, rental income. The car was simple. The title had never fully transferred. A few clicks and it was off the market. Jasper had left it in long-term parking at the Raleigh airport. I arranged for pickup, detail, and delivery to my garage. The house required finesse. Milo drafted an eviction notice under the LLC, not my personal name. It didn't need to mention me at all. Cass would be the agent on record when the notice reached the door 30 days after Alora's scheduled return. Time enough for them to unpack, breathe, and then find the letter taped to the entrance. I wasn't angry, which surprised me. I expected anger. Instead, I felt something clean. Distance. It happens when you stop trying to force a person to be someone they cannot be. Dad used to say, some people don't leave. They wait until they're forced out. Alora lived that way. I used to hope she'd wake up and realize family isn't currency. That was before I saw her name on forged papers. Before I heard her bright voice telling me everything I loved was already sold. They say revenge is best served cold. This wasn't revenge. It was an education. And I wasn't serving it. I was leaving it where she would find it. The day they landed in Lisbon, I confirmed the last delivery times. Then I took my car for a long drive past the beach house she believed she owned, and into the evening like nothing had been taken from me at all. She came back 4 weeks earlier than expected. No heads up, no text, just a knock on a Thursday afternoon. When I opened the door, I barely recognized her. The perfect curls from her trip photos were pulled back with a rubber band. Her designer bag looked bent out of shape, like it had been dragged through terminals. Purple shadows sat under her eyes. We stood there for a moment. Rowena, she said at last, voice small. Can I come in? I stepped aside. She walked into my apartment like she still had keys to everything, looking for traces of herself in a space she'd never seen. She hovered near the counter, waiting for me to invite her to speak. I put the kettle on instead. We sat in quiet while water warmed. When I set her mug down, she held it with both hands and stared into the steam. Jasper left, she said, almost whispering. In Portugal. He met someone on a boat, 23 backpacker from Marseille. Said he needed to find himself. He took the rest of our cash and disappeared. I nodded once, not sympathy, acknowledgement. I tried to fly home on points, she said, but the account was empty. I borrowed money from a stranger to call the airline, and when I landed, I didn't know where else to go. There it was, the real sentence inside all the others. I let silence stretch. You can stay, I said at last. For a little while. She blinked, surprised. Thank you, baby. I know I don't deserve it. I didn't argue. She slept in the guest room. I gave her towels, a key, the Wi-Fi code. I didn't ask about her plan. She didn't ask about mine. Evenings, she cooked small, over-salted versions of the meals I remembered. Mornings, she washed dishes before I got up. I let her believe it meant something. I smiled when she asked, about work. I nodded when she said she might look for a job. But I also kept notes. Every receipt on my card, every call from my line, every statement that didn't match another. I wasn't collecting ammo. I was keeping a record. Because forgiveness without facts isn't forgiveness, it's a blade. And I had been cut enough. One night after she went to bed, I opened a clean page in the old notebook I use for client strategies. I wrote her name at the top and the date she returned. She found the job herself. I didn't ask where she was going when she left that morning with a wrinkled resume and my spare sweater. She came back hours later and set a folded paper on the counter. Nights, she said. Office cleaning. 2 buildings. Minimum wage. I can start tomorrow if I want. Then you should, I said. And that was that. The first week, she limped home, feet sore, shoulders tight. I left Epsom salts by the bathroom door and didn't say a word when she didn't thank me. She began waking earlier than me, pulling herself out of bed to avoid the shame of sleeping late. At times, it felt practiced, suffering at the right volume, a little performance of humility. But sometimes she forgot to act. One afternoon, I found her in the laundry room, scrubbing the cuffs of her pants by hand even though the machine was free. No humming, no posing, just work. Another evening, I saw her at the table with a pad, sketching her schedule and costs like she was building a life from scraps. No audience, no narration. I watched. I didn't praise or rescue. That wasn't the point. She started cooking simple. Meals, lentils, rice, canned vegetables, and ate every bite. No more pushing plates away like someone who never had to finish. Sometimes she mentioned a second job, or taking GED classes, or how she once wanted to study interior design before things got complicated. I didn't ask what complicated meant. She didn't explain. In those moments, we weren't mother and daughter. We were 2 women at a table neither of us controlled. Something shifted when she stopped asking for it. She never brought up the beach house or the car. Maybe she thought they were gone. Maybe she knew they weren't and chose silence. Maybe she waited for me to speak. But silence has its own pull. It either draws you in or teaches you to hold your shape. One night, passing her door, I heard soft crying, not loud enough to be heard on purpose, not loud enough to earn comfort. The sound of someone whose old world had fallen apart and who wasn't sure if the new one could be built by hand. The second envelope was smaller. I had almost forgotten it. It was tucked behind an old photo album in my bottom desk drawer. No. Label. Just my name in my father's careful hand. Inside, a USB drive and a folded note. His writing again. If she ever comes back and if she ever tells the truth, give her the rest. But only when you're ready to see all of it. I plugged the drive in. No videos, no letters, numbers, ledgers, scans, quiet facts. The trust was real. He set it up 4 years before he died, hidden under a Wyoming shell. I was the only beneficiary. The house, the car, the rentals were just part of it. What hit me harder was a single record in a folder, an attempt to access the trust 2 years ago. Alora's name. Her forged signature. A denied claim flagged by the bank and quietly closed after he passed. She had tried even then. She had failed. I printed what mattered. The trust papers, the forgery, a summary of the assets I now controlled. Then I wrote, not a speech, not a fight, just a letter to the truth. I didn't want her to hear me. I wanted her to see the paper. When I was done, I folded it, sealed it, and set it by her teacup. The truth was hers now. What she did with it wasn't mine to manage. We drove to the beach house in silence. She didn't ask where we were going until the gravel crackled under the tires. Her breath caught when she saw it. The pale siding, the porch swing, the salt and pine wind. I didn't speak. I unlocked the door. She walked in slowly, running her fingers along the trim like she was checking if it was real. In the kitchen, she stopped at the ceramic teapot she'd once bargained for at a yard sale. On the shelf, her eyes lingered on the photo of Dad in flannel, holding a fish too big for his smile. I let her look. When she sat on the couch, I put the envelope in her lap and left the room. From the hall, I heard paper rustle, then quiet, then the kind of breath that breaks, then low, raw sobs that came in waves. She didn't call my name. When I returned, she still held the letter, hands shaking. I sat across from her and waited. She didn't deny. She didn't defend. She looked at me as if she was seeing me for the first time, not as a daughter she could edit, but as the ledger she couldn't change. You have a choice, I said. You can leave now with dignity, or you can stay, not as my mother, but as caretaker. This house will be a retreat for women erased by people who claim to love them. She nodded once. I want to stay. I stood and opened the window. The ocean air rolled in. For the first time in years, it didn't sting. It steadied. It cleared.